Thank you, Patrick. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Deb Bowering, and I look after Fortis Alberta's Community Investment Program. And I want to welcome you to this session of Urban Forestry today. Fortis Alberta has been a supporter of Communities in Bloom since 2014. The first event of our partnership was a session that took place for communities actually in our Red Deer office. And the session was held in March and was definitely in March in Alberta. There was a snowstorm, but we did have people who actually drove in from as far away as Tabor to come to the session and learn about Communities in Bloom. So that was, it actually ended up, the event was very successful. I want to start today by introducing Maureen Sexsmith-West, the Ladybug Arborist from Lethbridge. Maureen was introduced to gardening by her mother as a very young child, and she always had a passion for it. Maureen wasn't always an arborist. In her past life, she worked as the manager at the Chamber of Commerce and also worked for the Edmonton Oilers. But nature called, so to speak, and she realized she wanted to work outdoors. She spent a season working at a golf course in Elk Valley before spending 3 years as an apprentice arborist, and in 2000 became the first female arborist in Lethbridge and has been working in the industry ever since. Maureen is an advocate of heritage tree preservation and has been a part of that program since 2006. She also visits schools to teach children about trees in the hopes that some will develop a passion the way she did. Ladybug Arborist, Maureen's business in Lethbridge, was founded in 2012, and in 2013, she won the Chinook Entrepreneur Challenge. We welcome you, Maureen, and are looking forward to learning more about urban forestry.
Well, thanks a lot, Deborah, and to Patrick and Karen as well for facilitating this. My first time doing a live webinar, so hopefully everything goes smoothly. Certainly really knowledgeable in the subject matter, and I look forward to sharing a little bit about my perspective as a judge and as an arborist with the category of urban forestry that is in the Communities in Bloom program. And there's an extensive number of other topics that are available. If anyone's interested in learning a bit more, we can talk about that at the end. But for now, I'm just going to try and focus in on some things that I think would be useful tools for you as a committee in order to help you build a really high-scoring program for your when your judging tour stuff starts coming back. So as Deborah mentioned, I have been doing trees now for, I guess, close to 25 years. Although you maybe not can see it all that well, my hair is rather gray. So all that experience, I can share a lot of information with my staff and with anybody who wants to talk trees with me. I'm really happy to do that. So I just want to start with this little sort of humorous little bit here. Trees really are the oldest, largest, longest living organism on the planet. And without trees, we really cannot survive. We need them for oxygen and we need them for food. We use them for fuel, for construction, for pollution control. Just the list is quite endless. And there's been lots of studies on the benefits of trees. And so hopefully you're familiar with some of them. And we'll try and delve into that a little bit deeper. So here I am, as Deb mentioned, I've been involved, there I am, digging in puddles. I'm also a real fan of insects, so I do a lot of entomology studying because it's really relevant to doing diagnostic work in the field. But here I am in my various roles, working with students, doing public outreach. There I am in Sexsmith, Alberta, which is my namesake. I did a judge's tour there, which was kind of fun, so I had made sure I got a picture of myself there. I do have, I'm self-taught. I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to go to a formal education in arboriculture. But I took my years of experience and I did a lot of home study, and I did do an apprenticeship program. So under the direction of a certified arborist in order to gain all the knowledge necessary for me to apply and write a certified arborist exam. we're not a red seal like we would be an electrician or a journeyman landscape gardener, and we're, as an industry, we're trying to get that designation so that we're not sort of left out of the classification of qualified professionals. So we're industry controlled at the moment. So I have several designations, and they all require me to do ongoing professional development and self-training. So I do continuing education credits all the time so that I can maintain my knowledge in the changes in the industry, and to be able to offer new insight into things that are happening in our community. And interestingly enough, yesterday I went to my local garden center and I brought in a sample because we've been suffering a lot of losses from cedar plants this year. A lot has to do with the water being hot, more humidity and a lot more precipitation, which causes splashing. So when things get infected, it helps spread the disease really rapidly. And people were bringing in leaf samples, but nobody was bringing the whole plant in for diagnostics. So we had a really great session of sharing with our local garden center. And I left them the sample, and now they're able to better help clients that come into the counter with problems with their cedars. And then we also discussed another problem that we sort of concluded that's a non-chemical cultural control. So being in connection with my community and my partners in the industry is really important. And I encourage you to do the same in your communities. So the thing that I'll start off with urban forestry, I'll read you the definition on the criteria sheet, and it says, urban forestry includes the efforts of the municipality, businesses, institution, and residents with regards to written policies, bylaws, standards for management, including selection, planting, and maintenance, long and short-term management plans, tree replacement policies, pollinator-friendly tree selection, tree inventory, and integrated pest management, heritage, memorial, and commemorative tree programs. And so the first thing that the judges are looking for is an overall impression of the health of your forest and the diversity of the trees and shrubs that your community represents. So that includes, of course, residential, municipal, and commercial. So industrial sites, schools, churches, they're all part of the scoring system. And so overall, the combination of those things are factored into the point system. And the main thing is that you really want to create the best first impression for tourism, for your citizens. You want people to come there and have a really positive experience. And trees can go a long way to helping people feel uplifted, energized, and technically rejuvenated when they're in a nice green space. And trees contribute a lot to that. So in municipalities, there are pockets of trees. They provide a variety of purposes. There are boulevards trees, there are park-based trees where you have green strips to connector routes between neighborhoods or to provide recreation spaces in different parts of the community. Oftentimes there's a connecting walking trail that we'll be able to see that gets you through all of these various green spaces. And woody plants play a really important role in the aesthetic of your community, but they also provide a tremendous amount of benefits. So having a good diverse selection of trees is really important because when we have problems coming in, we can have monocultures can result in major losses, unplanned disasters, basically, with diseases and things move in. So this is a thing, a philosophy that I follow when it comes to trees and my staff. And basically the foundation for our instruction is this whole statement about starting early. The sooner we can address tree issues, the easier it is for us to find success in our reducing our maintenance programs and reducing risk and liability. So if trees are like children, they need to be trained, fed, and nurtured to make a valuable contribution to society. Those that are undisciplined or neglected are more likely to have issues as they mature and become labeled as problems. It's important to have the right tree in the right place. That will minimize your maintenance costs and have a lower incident of conflict with buildings and wires, you know, visibility for safety at intersections, all that kind of stuff. Those are all really important things that should be in your planning process, and in order to make your forest functional but less costly to have. And watering is a really important thing. And an area, as an arborist personally, we find in our area in particular, irrigating correctly is really a struggle. So in other parts of the province, that would be completely different. You have lots of rain in other parts of the province, so irrigation systems aren't as critical to you. But progressive ongoing maintenance will keep trees healthier. It keeps them within their boundaries and reduces the hazard potential that they can present, particularly large trees. So on the categories, one of the thing that is contributes 15 points to your score is the strategic plan category, and it talks about policies, regulations, tree bylaws, tree protection, and planting on private land. We have oftentimes small communities do not have the budget or the ability to have a permanent full-time arborist of their own. They have a person who is maybe part-time ice maker, part-time mower, part-time arborist, part-time yada yada. So they're wearing a lot of different hats and they don't have a lot of training in those areas. They also don't have a lot of documentation or a management plan. And this is, I guess, having a Communities in Bloom program helps you focus in and try and develop a really good management strategy. Do you have bylaws about trees? These are things that the judges are going to ask you. Do you have things about, you know, are there trees that are banned because they're, you know, cottonwoods produce a lot of female seed, or maybe there's things about size of trees in certain locations. Are there bylaws about that you have to have so many trees planted for so many parking stalls in a commercial development? So working with your development office is really important. That there's good communication between the municipality and the development office, and the judges will be interested in knowing that kind of information. Do they work with other agencies, for example, if it's a county or if it's a school district, like what kind of cooperation is being demonstrated between the different organizations that have trees in their care? There's also construction guidelines, for example. So when the city is hiring someone to come in and do a new development, and they put trees in a green space, do you have planting specifications or tree recommendations? Because you want to have trees that you know are going to be your responsibility in the future. You want to make sure you have the best trees that have the least number of issues for you to maintain in the future. And we also want to try and have guidelines so that if you have, you know, 50% of your trees are one species of, say, a green ash tree, and we know emerald ash borer is moving its way across the country and it's now in Manitoba heading through to Saskatchewan. We really don't want to be adding more of that tree to our inventory for our care, because if that pest does come, it can wipe out your entire green space, your forest assets. So you want to be looking to diversify down the road. And then, do you have a pruning cycle? That just means something as simple as understanding that fast-growing trees like fruit trees need to be pruned more often than older, larger trees. They tend to grow slower and they don't require as much maintenance. But there should be some kind of a program in place that, say, every 3 years you're going to rejuvenate all the shrubs in the parks, and so that you maintain a healthy, small, compact plant with the least amount of maintenance, so you don't have to go hedge trim all the time. Is the cycle realistic based on the growth rate of the trees? And in Lethbridge, where I live, I have trees that are over 100 years old in some neighborhoods and some that are just being planted this week. So knowing the age and the diverse species of stuff, that's all really important to have that inventory so that you can have a good plan in place so that you can schedule your staff to work efficiently, especially if you have limited staff resources. You know, you want to pick times like in the winter, for example, or shoulder seasons where they're not busy with mowing or they're busy doing ice production in the arena. Where are you going to be able to utilize those people? And or do you need a budget to hire someone in to do those jobs? In which case you should have pruning specifications to give your contractors, and you should have a record keeping system so you can do requests for quotes. So I brought some examples in here to share with you. We don't have to be, you don't need a 600-page document if you're a town of 2,000 people. You just sort of have to have a plan. I mean, you just have to think about that. If you have, first thing you need to know is how many trees you have and what distribution are they? Are they 2 years old or 100 years old? Are they green ash? Are they maple? Because these are all things that influence the pruning cycles that you would do. And then in other larger centers, just go online and look at what they have to offer. Like this is the city of Calgary here, and you can just go to their website and click on their link and see what do they do. What is a tree protection bylaw intended to do? It's in fact to protect trees, particularly municipal trees that are being affected by construction activities. So if I want to do a development and make a change to my household, I actually have to apply for a permit there in order to do my work so that I'm not going to negatively impact the tree on the boulevard. So there are guidelines that they put forward, and they're all laid out ahead of time, so contractors that are looking at, and then they have a person who's assigned to monitor that those guidelines are being fulfilled. And they also have some really good, like over here we have like a flyer that's available as a downloaded PDF that talks about basic things like it doesn't matter what municipality, if it's, you know, again 2,000 or 200,000 people, there are things that are sort of standard, like this one about plant spacing, so that you have clearances for pedestrians, you have clearance for transportation vehicles or garbage trucks and so on and so forth, so that it creates an easy flow for in the infrastructure. It minimizes the damage to trees, and it also minimizes the damage or the possible injury to pedestrians or vehicular traffic, because the branches are being kept at a distance over above. No one in the town really wants their garbage truck to be sort of struck every time it comes down the alley doing collections, because it just adds to the maintenance costs at the other end. So trees can, you know, increase or decrease future costs on other aspects of the operation of the municipality. So it's important to kind of keep them in good condition. So this is just, like I say, a simple little flyer that's put out that you can go online and look up, and could be easily replicated for your town, for example. Then I've also got some other ideas, especially for smaller centers that don't have a non-staff arborist. Organizations like this, the Elora Environmental Center here is an excellent example. They have a website, they have a program called Citizen Pruner, and it's actually, if you were to talk to the organizers there, it's a really great program where they have citizens in the community come in, they hire a qualified arborist like myself or somebody else to come in and teach a basic pruning course, and then members of the community can go in and help with simple, basic, you know, small park pruning, which stretches the budget. It gives a lot of pride in the community and also gets you a lot of points when it comes to communities in bloom. So there's also another program that's through LEAF out of Toronto. And this program, if you see down at the bottom, it's funded through the Canadian Tree Fund. So if you have an idea on how you want to improve your urban forestry program, maintenance program, or you want to plant trees, or you want to do maybe a demonstration for it where you need some signage made, the Canadian Tree Fund is a great resource for supporting small community projects. And I can certainly talk more about that, but I encourage you to go there. So on their website, they also have frequently asked questions that are relevant to their region, and they also have some really good basic pruning tips. This was basically a copy of documents that have been produced by Ed Gilman, who is a well respected and super knowledgeable person in our tree care community. And so these types of resources can be recycled. Again, don't have to reinvent the wheel and become an arborist, because there's lots of resources already available to you online that you could adapt and include on your Facebook group or your community website. So there's the link at the bottom as well. And then here's another one. Through the City of Toronto, there's a group called Local Enhancement and Appreciation of Forests. It handles a diverse number of programs. They also have a community pruning program where you go in and you get a certificate to be authorized volunteer pruner in various neighborhoods throughout the City of Toronto and the greater Toronto community. But they also have a lot of really fantastic little videos on here. So I thought I'd share that link. If you're looking for ideas on what you could do in your community, or you want to share some of their great information. I mean, it's been, again, subsidized by government funding and through the Canadian Tree Fund. So these would be public access resources. Then the City of Edmonton, much larger center, like most of the people involved in the community groups provincial are smaller. The larger centers tend to be national. But again, they also have some really great programs. They also have a lot of great education information that they make available to encourage their citizens to demonstrate best management practices, how to have a sustainable forest, and how to just basically take good care of the trees in their community. Here's one from the City of Kelowna. They also have a really active tree preservation group. I think it's called Tree Keepers. And it's volunteer run. They do pruning, they do workshops, they do bring in speakers and stuff, and then they contribute to the overall health of the urban forest through donation of time into, like, say, a cemetery pruning or something, and then they help encourage people in the community to take on best management practices, and then they provide information. So people who are interested in learning about how to care for trees have a source locally that they can go to. And on the larger scale, you can go online and look at these urban management plans. They're really in depth and not really much we can talk about, but basically you just need a plan, and it doesn't have to be, like I say, a large plan. You can just say every 5 years we're going to prune all of the boulevard trees, or we are going to be working towards modifying the number of tree species so that we have a more diverse forest. It just gives you something to follow and in order to have a strategic approach to caring for the trees that are in your care, bylaws, that kind of stuff. It just gives you an action plan so that it's measurable and achievable, and then can be reviewed and have like a lot of community engagement in the planning and the decision making about what happens. You know, do you want to create an edible forest in the community, for example? Do you want to have that would supplement your food bank program, for example? You know, where would you do it? Who would be looking after it? And that kind of stuff. So this would be something that the municipality could do in partnership with all of the various groups in the community. So the inventory is kind of the launching pad. You can have all kinds of plans, but if you don't know a starting point, it's pretty tough in order to really have something that's realistic. So we'll say, for example, the golf course, when I worked at it in Henderson Lake, there were 1,850 trees. And the only way they knew that is because I went around and I identified the trees, I measured and estimated their age, what condition they were in. And from that point moving forward, I knew where the priorities were. For them, it was obviously they wanted to maintain safety between holes. So they couldn't, you know, when trees were declining, they needed to have a replanting strategy so they didn't have gaping holes for golf balls to go through to another hole, or they would be possible injuries to other golfers. And so there's lots of things to factor in, and it has a lot to do with your use or the end, the purpose of the tree that's being cataloged. So is it providing wind buffering? Is it for shade for a playground? These are all things that sort of add value to the tree and the importance and the ranking. So if you have a tree that's over a playground and there's big deadwood in it, then it becomes a liability. And so this helps you identify where your most urgent care is, and then works its way to a plan where you actually think about what to do in the future, because trees don't live forever. Things happen, construction activity comes along, and a tree has to be replaced. So you don't want trees to be all the same age, and you don't want them to be the same species. So it's important to be able to have a sort of a reforestation strategy that will keep trees at different ages and conditions for the long term. So it's not just the municipality, sorry, it is other groups in the community that are part of this under the business and institutions portion. It's things like school districts and golf courses and churches. They would really benefit from having an inventory of their own. Even if you only have 50 trees and 20 bushes or whatever it is, having some kind of a management plan will help with budgeting as well, which is really important. And there's a couple of resources here through Tree Canada that will help understand what tree inventories are about, and also a lot of resources that you can use. There's sort of like fill in the blank stuff as well. So it's pretty great. So how can we protect our trees for a greener future? Knowledge is power. So if we understand what we have, what threats are coming, if we have some basic skills, then we can really go a long way to making sure that we have that urban forest for a long, long time. So other communities, in this case, the city of Red Deer, they have, again, resources just as ideas of things that you can be offering to the citizens of your community, so they can be in that public participation into things to help keep forests really great. They're looking to you for guidance and ideas, and leading by example, I guess, is really what I'd say. So your municipality can create the knowledge that people need in order to take better care of trees on their own property. Here's an example. We're talking about if you decide what trees are acceptable, then when you're looking for purchasing trees, or people are looking to install trees in a new development, they have to meet your standards for what you would want to see in your community. And I see one here, and this is an older screenshot, but this fall gold black ash, for example, that tree is no longer being planted in Lethbridge because of a tree killing insect. So if someone's trying to come in and offer to sell you fall gold black ash for a development, the source would be really questionable, and there'd be a very high probability that that tree would be just a waste of money because it would be dead in a short period of time. So if you can sort of set some ground rules for your contractors, then it makes sure that you get good quality trees right up front, because ultimately you're going to be responsible for caring for them. There's and this one here talks about the growth rate. It helps you understand the location that it would be best planted in full sun, and next dry, sandy soil it does best in. And the main thing is here, like utility considerations. These are super important. Knowing whether the tree is going to be and cause conflicts with overhead power, underground power, also obstructing signage and street lights and all that sort of stuff. So placement of tree, right place. A grid like this would really be a tremendous asset for you to have. I was saying to Deborah, I made sure I rely on this resource a lot. Fortis has this excellent planting recommendations when you're planting near power. Trees can be super dangerous when it comes to being around utility lines. And so there are guidelines as to what you should plant by overhead services. Most people don't pay attention to them, unfortunately, and I wish more would, because it just creates a lot of extra labor for the utility companies to ensure that we have sustainable power services, especially in weather events. Because trees shouldn't be taller than and closer than the target. So a 20-foot tree should be 20 feet away. So if it was to fail, it wouldn't take out the services that are there. But we do the best we can. I mean, trees have been planted without thought with this kind of consideration, because they want a big tree in a small yard. So they tend to want to plant it at the back of a lot or too close to a building. So it just causes extra work for the aftercare and also creates greater risk. So if we can, from this point forward, make some decisions about making better tree choices, the overall budget for the municipality and for homeowners as well would be significantly less. So here's an example of where you really should be planting trees. And there's so many great opportunities for low-headed trees to go under power and have your larger shade trees closer to a house so that it provides the most benefit for energy conservation when it comes to heating and cooling. Then I've got a couple of other links here I thought might be helpful. Tree Canada is an amazing organization. It's a not-for-profit. They do outstanding tree planting initiatives as one of their main things, and they have a lot of grants available to small centers or large centers for that matter for tree planting initiatives. They've got their planting guide, education and awareness. There's lots of information. They can tell you how much carbon sequestering your trees are doing in your community. And that's something, again, all relevant to what you're putting together in your presentation for the judges when they come through. But there are a large number of grants. The Edible Forest is one. There's a Green Streets that they're in partnership with TD. So I'm encouraging you to really go online and have a look at what they have to offer. Not just money, but as far as education and resources that you can use for your putting together your plan. And part of that plan should be knowing what pests and what threats and diseases that your community is at risk for. And so there's a provincial program called Integrated Pest Management, which you can go online and learn a lot about. It talks about scouting and how you prevent the onset or the arrival of major tree killing pests. Like right now, there's a really great program that's being monitored by the Stop Dead organization, the Society for the Protection Against Dutch Elm Disease. They have some excellent resources. They have guidelines when it comes to when and how you can prune. They also do a lot of trapping and data collection, so we know where the insects are that could potentially be bringing Dutch elm disease to Alberta, and so far we are Dutch elm disease free. Here's a couple of interesting little resources that you might want to add to your little arsenal. Insects, there's an actual website that highlights all the insects of Alberta. So it could be part of your education and awareness program for your community. There's a lot of beneficial insects, not just all what we consider destructive insects, like a caterpillar that will come in and eat a bunch of leaves off your tree. There are tons of beneficial insects as well. So here's a really handy little website that you can go to and learn a little bit more about the insects that you have in your community. And there's also some, these are like PDF sheets. So if there's something going on in your community and you want to share some information, you could go online and make that a bulletin in your community if there's something new that's potentially a threat to the urban forest in your town. Some more really great resources that you can use. I use the ISA Trees Are Good location. My shirt today, Trees Are Good. They have amazing consumer care information, a lot of really good literature. You can get them in print version, but they're also available online as a PDF. And they have resources to you about where to mulch, how to mulch, when's the best time to prune, so on and so forth. There's some really great, and there's also a link here which is Find an Arborist. So if you're looking to find an ISA qualified person to help either as an advisor or to do work in your community, people like me who are ISA certified are registered on there, and you can go on there and search your town name and it'll tell you all the companies or the individuals that are offering ISA certified staff. And there's also, a lot of great information in here. Our other articles and stuff, and you can subscribe and you can get newsletters and bulletins as well. So that this is just information you can gather and disseminate back out again. I mentioned Stop Dead. They have their own website with a lot of useful information if you're concerned. In Alberta right now, we are Dutch elm disease free, but we are also having problems with European elm scale all over the province, which is a very serious threat to the urban population, urban elm population, because it can reproduce at such a high level. It causes a secondary condition called sooty mold, and it is very rapid in its attack onto the trees. And I think what I find with calls that we get is that things are happening to a tree for a long time before most people notice them. Insects and diseases are considered secondary. So a tree that is not watered well, or it's had not pruned regularly, or if it's had storm damage and it's been left unattended, those are the ones that attract the bugs that are open to decay and fungus and so on and so forth. So it's not a healthy tree isn't really susceptible to these types of problems. The bugs don't make the tree sick or in decline. They're the consequence of a tree that's not being cared for correctly. So it's a good indication that you need to do something different. And a lot of times it just means changing your irrigation level, checking your soil condition. So is it getting enough sun for the type of tree that it is? So it's, again, comes back to right tree, right location, and making sure that you understand what the tree requires, and then you're able to meet those. Here's a fun little thing, because they do talk about heritage trees. Back in 2006, the Alberta Heritage Tree Foundation did a tour through the province, and a number of communities, and I know a lot of the communities that are in Communities in Bloom participated in gathering the information on local, trees of renown. Here's a nice little example that the city of Medicine Hat put together of some of their specimen trees. So a person could go on a little tree tour, as it were. So I'm excited to share, despite that organization kind of fell apart, I've been working with a gentleman out of Edmonton who's doing a project for the city of Edmonton named Dustin Bayer. We have been able to identify and locate a large number of the records that were submitted for that original proposal. And right at the moment, he is working on trying to update and create a database with all the city of Edmonton information with the assistance of a heritage tree or a heritage grant of sorts. And we also have a company out of Australia or New Zealand who is providing the software resources, so that if everything comes together later on this year, we will have a database management system, so we can start having communities participate in registering trees under the Alberta Heritage Tree Program again. So hopefully I'll be able to keep you posted on that as through the Communities in Bloom network, but feel free to get a hold of me if that's something you're really interested in, because we're looking for people to volunteer in their communities to help us build that database. Don't hesitate looking to other companies like myself or Adair Tree Care in Edmonton. Here's the Bartlett Tree Service, who's based out of Calgary. They have a lot of really fantastic blogs or newsletters, or they have frequently asked questions, all kinds of things that could be useful. So if you encounter something and you'd like to learn more about it, certainly sign up to a couple of these and then just sort of glom on and learn from them some things that might be useful in your center. There's an area on here under maintenance quality, both in municipal, in residential, and in industrial, about how well are you doing when it comes to the best management practices. And the ISA has all these great little, I would consider them in layman's terms, simple, this is how you prune a tree. This is what a tree inventory is intended to do. It's like 20 pages or maybe 30 or 40 pages, depending on what it is, with amazing illustrations and good instruction. And they're very affordable. As you can see, they're around $12 each. We have a full set in our office, and when we have new staff, they're all expected to review some of these documents just to give them a basic information. And then the material that's in here can be used for classes or anything else that you might need them for doing workshops, for example. They can come in handy have them in your library even, to have them so people can sign them out and use them in within their own home maintenance program. This is another really outstanding pruning handbook that I use when I'm teaching classes. It's available through the Agricultural and Forestry Alberta. You can go online and order it. They're only $3 a piece. Super affordable because it's a keeper. And you know, even if you had a few of those available, you could hand out on a Citizen Awareness Day or an Arbor Day event or something. You know, it would be really a great resource to have in your town. Now, all these ideas we have, I've just tossed out tons of things that you could and should have, would have done. There are programs that you can look for funding on, the edible forest and that. Tree Canada has a number of tree planting initiatives that you could look at. I am on a director on the Canadian Tree Fund, and so the one on the left side there, the Jack Kimmel grant, is the one that financed the Citizen Pruner in Elora and a lot of the activities that are done by the LEAF program. And I know they are desperate to try and have new initiatives in Western Canada. That's why they've got directors in BC and myself representing the prairies with one other director. And they're trying to get more in the Maritimes as well, because the money tends to be, you know, spent all in Ontario, and they would much rather see, because it's intended to be Canada-wide, that we encourage communities to come up with ideas that they could submit to get funding. And you can get, you know, say $2,000 towards signage for your heritage tree program, or you might want to do an education forest and create an arboretum, and so you need assistance to do that. You want to do a citizen pruner program of your own, and you know, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. They'll partner you up with one of the other organizations, and then they can subsidize the cost of trying to get a program like that launched. So you know, they help you purchase the tools, the uniform, you know, the vests or whatever, so that, you know, there's a brand. So people are not just wandering around cutting branches, you know, arbitrarily. They're actually identified and trained and being able to support your community. And then Fortis, I put in here, they have tree planting grants. I don't know if you're aware of that. Again, another amazing thing that Fortis does. And you can see all the different places that they've contributed to tree planting initiatives. So be sure to check out what they have. $2,500 if you start with a number 5 or a number 7 tree. Goes a tremendous way to creating a nice, easy to establish planting area. Because the smaller the tree, the quicker the roots establish, rather than trying to get all these instant big trees for, you know, $600-700 a piece. You can get several trees for that type of budget with your voluntary planting plan. So definitely mark those down and investigate them. The Canadian Tree Fund has a deadline, application deadline of December the 1st. And they do ask for pre-submissions if you can do them. And then the Fortis, I'm sure if we look on here, there's probably a application deadline. And same thing with Tree Canada. A number of them are usually late winter or early, so that they can award them in time for the planting season. So be sure to check those out. So I'm running out of time. I know we want to have time for questions as well. So this is something I wanted to share with you. This is sort of my philosophy. When I was doing a heritage tree assessment in the town of Coaldale, I found this cavity with this little message in there, which really makes me emotional still, because trees really do tell the story of our lives. They're there for our first, you know, if we look back through our photo albums and our photo on our iPhone, you know, there's the pictures of us on our first day of school and different phases of our life. And 9 times out of 10, we're trying to incorporate green space and trees into the background of our lives. And so they're really important. I hope I've covered lots of stuff in a little bit of an amount of time, and my head is full of lots of other things I wish I could have, should have said in my little 45 minutes. But basically, I love trees, and I'd love to help you succeed in your submissions for the urban forestry category. So I'm welcoming all of your questions. Here's a couple of ideas for activities that you can do. This is all, there's a huge section in the Alberta Forestry, a week for the province, where they give you school activities and community events and coloring book sheets and everything else. There you go. You click on that link and you just open the door to all kinds of free resources that you could use to celebrate trees, either in September for Maple Leaf Day, or whether you want to create an Arbor Day event in May. So, and then I was kind of interesting to see that, oh, typo, that the grade 1 seedling program, I think everybody is quite familiar with that. For, 60 years over that, grade 1 students have received seedlings to plant, usually in their flower bed, too close to the house or whatever. But the idea is to encourage them to plant a tree and care for it through their lifetime. And this year, unfortunately, they weren't able to do that. And there's no reason why you couldn't propagate trees on your own. I have a seed harvesting day and just have kids plant trees from the seeds in your community. So trees live long and die slow. What we do to them matters. So I think I'll leave it there with that thought, and I'll get Patrick to open up to questions.
All right, thanks, Maureen. So if anyone does have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat box or the Q&A pod. We got one here already. All right, from Penny Fox. Thanks for the info. We have a summer student that we can help with this inventory. There's so much we cannot do this year, but it's a project we can start.
Yeah, there's no question that this would be a great activity for seasonal staff if there's other things that can't go on. They just need some basic knowledge about tree species and some simple data collection using a spreadsheet. You don't need a complex computer program to be able to do that. Again, if you go online and you look at that, an idea on what an inventory involves, it's just a matter of just sort of taking stock of what you are. If you were a store, a retail store, you'd want to know how many hammers and how many, wrenches and how many whatever you have in order to know where you need to put your marketing strategies to work, and so on and so forth. And trees are no different. It helps us determine what we need to be putting our most urgent energy into right now. So yeah, definitely would be a great program, just as long as they know enough about the species of tree to be able to identify them, and just a good DBH measuring tape and a clipboard, and then a data entry into Excel would just give you a great start.
All right, I'll give people another minute or two here if they have any more questions.
So if it's possible I'm just going to throw some more ideas out while we're waiting. I do a lot of free workshops in Lethbridge in the area where we work with the Horticultural Society. We go into schools. We do community gardens are a great partner. They'll facilitate and find a space to do a little workshop on pruning of fruit trees, or maybe they want to know about a specific topic on tree related material. And I'm certain if you were to try and maybe talk to some of your local arborists, there might be a potential partnership there where they can come in, even if you have to hire them as a professional speaker. The value that you get from that consulting service, where you go in and you actually go hands-on at a church or community park or something, and you start training your community members on proper tree care practices, would be really worthwhile.
So we have a couple more questions here. One is just asking if a copy of the webinar will be posted on the Alberta Communities in Bloom website. I know Karen was having a bit of trouble connecting. So Karen, if you have the answer to that and you can hear me, please put it in the chat box, but I definitely will be sending Karen a copy of the recording. So hopefully we can make that happen. And from Larry Hall, where is the best place to start tree seeds, in the house or in the ground outside?
Certain seeds need stratification, and so some need to be frozen in order to germinate, some need to be scratched, some need to be excreted by a bird that's eaten it. So there's different things, but in my experience, it's been more successful if you start your propagation out of doors at the appropriate time. Greenhouses who do a lot of production stuff will probably do stuff indoors in a greenhouse setting. You just don't want to start them too early because they'll be weak. And it's like, you know, getting a tomato from the garden center. It needs to sort of harden off and get used to that new environment. Whereas if you just throw, I know there's a gentleman here named Mike Stefancic, and he'll go collect black walnut seeds and he'll throw them in a gunny sack and he'll bury them in his flower bed. And then once they start to germinate, as the air temperature improves, then he pots them out. So maybe that's an approach you consider if you want to collect acorns or maple seeds. There's a surprising number of really great seeds we use in our area. I collect seeds from a honey locust from a customer, and actually a lot of those seeds end up at Olds College for them for their propagation class, but they're really great with students because it's along like a legume, like a bean, and each pod can have, you know, anywhere from 10 to 20 seeds in it. So it's a real fun activity when we do in-class planting because they actually germinate very well if just put in soil and they are then watered. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
All right, and we have one more here. Where can the best management practices books be purchased?
Purchased? If you were to go to the ISA Prairie Facebook page, and I think it's ISA, can I get out of here right now with my PowerPoint? And maybe I can find you the link here. Move this. Here it is right here. So here is the ISA Prairie chapter website, the phone number, and then on here there's a bookstore. So if you're looking to purchase books rather than buying them and having them shipped US funds and all that, you could actually contact Keith, and who's the executive director, and he can has those books in stock at pretty much all the time, and he could mail them to you from the office in Saskatchewan.
All right, so if no one else has any questions, thank you, Maureen, for doing this.
Okay, thanks a lot. It was great. And like I say, feel free to get a hold of me on your own. So I love to talk trees, so I'd be happy to answer questions off camera if that's better. Have a great day, and thanks everybody. Hug a tree today.
Thank you.